Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Witch Watch, Season 1, Episode 15. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, the crew got a new prophecy from Ibuki, Nico's mom, and it sends them to a very specific location because it's meant to help Nico in her battle against warlocks in the future, which Morihito's thinking like, oh, this has got to be like a weapon or some kind of item that can help us fight against the warlock, whereas everyone else, specifically Kan, Keigo, and Nico, are looking at this as a vacation opportunity. And it makes sense that obviously out of everyone, Morihito is the most like serious amongst them. But I think it is also derived from like, he takes his job extra serious because he's the very, stoic, serious type. So that's all he's focusing on while everyone else is looking at this as like a vacation. They're even bringing Nimu along as well. I love Ibuki. Nico getting so excited. Like, so, what kind of like swimsuit did you bring? Like a 2-piece or bikini? She's like, no, it's like a 1-piece or a bikini. She's like, a bikini. She's like, loses her stuff. Because we don't know who else was on the train, but I'm assuming that's why Morihito wanted her to calm down. Because like we're not the only ones on the train, but it seemed like in the train car they were in, seemed like they were the only ones. But it's not that big of a deal. But when they arrive at their location, they end up meeting our new protagonist. Miharu, who Miharu, is it Miharu or Miharu? I think it's Miharu. I'm conflating with another like Miharu that's in something else I'm watching currently. But yeah, kind of went into it knowing like without having to look anything up with just some of the aesthetics from the intro and the ending and the opening. I was like, oh, definitely got to be a vampire then, right? So. But he's a bit of a weirdo because he like is very like unintentionally he just speaks his mind. He kind of says like the quiet thing out loud. He's like, "Oh, Nico, this must be your lowly servants. Oh, your lowly subordinates, your lowly butlers." It's like, Jesus, why are you putting lowly in front of everything else? But he knows everybody else. He's like, "Oh, Nimu the witch, Keigo the werewolf, Kanshi the kappa." He's like, "No, I'm a Tengu." And it's like Nico the witch and also Morihito the ogre. You two are dating, right? And he's like, "No, we're not." And Nico's kind of like, "Oh my god, that you thought we were dating," but then also like, oh, he's so quickly dashed at, being like, oh, once again, poor Nico's heart can't handle it because she's like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you think we're dating." Oh, that's actually kind of cute that you think we're dating, but then Morihito immediately shooting it down, kind of like, kind of puts a little sour tune to it. But he's like, "Oh, the fact of the matter is that." I was just reading the situation. He's like, most people probably like make that assumption as well, and everyone's just like, "Shut up, hero!" Like you're kind of, and I think even Khan says that everyone's just like, "Oh, everyone's down now because you kind of like unintentionally killed the moon." And so he's thinking later on when they're in the car, he's like, "Yo, 3 guys and 1 girl living in the same house. Like, oh, people would think something happened, but most likely nothing did happen. Did something happen?" It's like, dude, shut up. And then like his dad, it was a. What was his dad's name? It's something with an M as well. Was it like, it wasn't like Masumi, was it? I can't remember. But his dad was like, "Sorry about my son." And you're just like, Jesus Christ, you're scary. Because he's more the Dracula than, I don't know if that's kind of the aesthetic they were initially going for, where it's like, he's your he's your like classic, like scary looking vampire, like, kind of Nosferatu-esque energy, where it's just like, oh, he's creepy. Whereas like, Miharu, once again, is it Mahiro or I actually have to look it up. It is Miharu. That was just going to bother me if I kept flip flopping during the recording, so I do apologize. But Miharu is kind of like your more recent vampires, like, ooh, they're pretty. I mean, at this to some degree, like, it's not like a new thing, but it kind of goes in and flow with like new pretty vampire type of situation. So, but we learned that his father's an exorcist. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I was like, that's fascinating. I mean, I guess it's like you do have like Blade, who is a vampire hunter, and he's a vampire, but still like specifically going down the route of the cloth, where you're like, well, he's like, oh, kind of do the Pastor Day side, but it's like I hunt down like small monsters and kind of evil spirits. I was like, oh, and he cuts them down with his sword. I was like, that's interesting. Like, but like it seems like I guess oxymoron, but it seems like such a conundrum of just like, I mean, once again, we don't know the full rules of vampirism because initially I was like, well, he's wearing the umbrella, so maybe they don't do. I mean, we don't get a full exploration of this even in this episode because at one point he doesn't have his umbrella open, so I'm like, oh, like is the whole vampires and sunlight not a thing? But they bring this up this episode, and I do forget a lot of like the familiars and their circumstances have transformed over so many generations of evolution. So like using Morihito for example, ogres don't have horns anymore. The Tengu don't really have wings anymore. So it may and the werewolves don't turn into wolves. They transform, but it's not the same. Same thing for vampires. It's like we find out they don't suck blood anymore. They drain energy. Which an energy vampire was like, well, I guess you could be like Michael Morbius from the 90s Spider-Man animated series where he's sucking up plasma. But I swear there's something else that has energy vampires and I can't remember what it was. I'm legit, like, there's something specifically with energy vampires and I can't remember what it was exactly. I swear it was something DC related, but I can't remember. Probably not. Maybe I'm just full of shit on that front. But either way, so it's just kind of once again the progression of like the evolution of like these beings and like generations later, like how they've evolved and changed. So maybe it's like they probably don't like the sun. Maybe that's just Miharu. Like maybe it's a thing of like, oh yeah, he burns easily, but it's not to the same extent of like no sunlight or no onions. Or crosses. Like maybe it's something like that. Maybe that's also how vampires kind of stayed a little hidden in the human world. Where it's like, oh, we when as witches familiars, we found a way to kind of help people the most, and that was through like the religious work of like being exorcists and stuff like that. I don't know. It's just, I think maybe because they're very unique in what their abilities are that like lend themselves very nicely to the exorcist work. Either way, they kind of go to the river and they're having fun. Even Morihito, even though he's not like woo wah like everyone else is, he's still enjoying himself. And I love that when Nico and Nemu come out in their bikinis, it's like, oh my god, the focus kind of turns to Nemu, and even Nico's like, wait, are you all focusing on Nemu? And I think it was like Khan or Keigo being like, well, we can't really look at either one of you because it's like it's a lot. But yeah, like I said, they're all having fun and it's nice, but it gets interrupted when a water warlock shows up to bust up the function, kind of going full blown like water bending here. He like traps them in the water, and because it's an endless supply of water, like Morihito can't like punch his way through like getting rid of it. And now he doesn't have good enough footing, so he can't escape. Nemu nor Nico has their wands with them, and Khan doesn't have his fan, so it's like, what can we do in this situation? And then luckily Miharu shows up and shows off his skills. And the way I thought was interesting, it's like, oh my god, your umbrella is secretly a sword, but he specifically says his unique thing is kind of like he can turn anything into a sword, the way he made that sound. So I'm like, interesting. I don't know if that's kind of like, because I guess maybe like the handle to the I guess maybe the thing is like he's able to remove like the metal rod that the hilt of the umbrella is, or the handle of the umbrella is connected to, and it becomes a sword, which is like, yo, this is interesting timing too, having obviously we're 2 episodes in, release wise, and I'm caught up with Gachi Akuda. So like, there's a little bit of like how they can put their powers into certain objects, so it kind of felt like that. So I was like, oh, interesting. So I guess he'll always potentially have a sword on hand if he keeps the umbrella around, but like knowing like, oh, I can kind of weaponize anything and turn it into a sword is interesting. If I didn't misread the subtitles, but I could have sworn that's what it said, so. Because he's like, yeah, my dad is more so suited for dealing with like small monsters and stuff like that, but like dealing with warlocks is kind of more his capabilities, because he's kind of like that special member in his family line, because like his dad only got like a sliver of like the vampiric ability, whereas like he's kind of like the prodigy who got like a lot of it. So that's why his drain is a lot different from his dad's. Because their whole thing is like, oh, we take a little bit of energy. Like, if you're magical, we take some of your magical energy. If you're a human, we take a little bit of your life force off the top. But we'll get into Miharu's situation in a little bit. But quite easily dispenses and destroys, like, the water of the warlock. He tries to take off, but then Keigo comes and knocks him out. We also had the larger conversation of, oh, Khan was kind of like, oh, I thought all witches were women. It's like, well, they're mainly women, but there are a few men. Once again, that's why I was like, I always treated warlock and witch as, or even wizard and witch as like gender specific. I always assumed like a wizard or warlock was a male and then a witch was a female, but like as we've seen in this case, a warlock can be a woman, or a witch can also just be a dude. So, but he gets off one final attack before passing out, and Miharu takes the blow. So I was like, well, you're a vampire. So I'm like, are you going to bite someone? And if you do, I was like, I doubt it's going to be Nico because that's going to be a little too intimate. But I was like, is it going to be Morihito? And that's going to get kind of like spicy or whatever. And it kind of does. But he, once again, grabs his arm. He's like, ooh, that's so delicious. You know what's interesting too, because I am watching, I caught up with, I still need to get completely caught up because at the time of recording this, I'm like still an episode behind on Call of the Night, which recently started its second season, like 2 weeks ago at the time we were like recording this. But it's funny because like Nazuna's like obsession with Ko's blood having kind of a similar reaction somewhat. But like how, I mean, they and that kind of leans into like the eroticism of the whole being bit. There's a little something erotic to it. So for him to kind of be like, yes, oh, and Morihito's like, oh God, calm down, dude. Like, what the hell? Like, you're acting like, yo, you're getting a little wild here. And he's like, I'm good. He's like, yeah, that's crazy. Like, I haven't got hurt that badly in a while. I was like, it's kind of neat being able to see my insides. It's like, you are one disturbed individual, dude. And even later on at the end of the episode when he gets hurt, he was like, oh, can I stay hurt a little while? I want to see my intestines. It's like, why are you so weird? But I guess, like, maybe it's kind of the kookiness of being, like, an immortal. Yes, they can feel pain and stuff like that, and they live for a long time. We don't know because of the generations and stuff like that. I'm curious if it's going to be a thing of they do age, but it's not the thing of you stay to, like, for example, like say he's like 15, because we see he does age despite being an immortal. So it's just probably like over generations they've aged slower. So like they might have like, whereas they used to might live for like forever, maybe. Let's say like over the years, like their lifespan has kind of gotten knocked down to 300 years is how much they live. But they do age, but it's kind of almost like a extremely slow rate. So he looks 15, and maybe once he reaches 20, he'll start slowing down until he gets up there in the hundreds, and then he'll start, age will catch up to him, relatively speaking. So I'm curious if that's how they're going to go about it. They didn't really discuss the whole age thing too much, because we find out that like I said, I think his dad's name is Masumi, that Papa Kiryu, let's kind of leave it at that, does not look the way he does because that's what he looks like. Because they were like, oh my God, we thought you were his grandfather. It's like, no, that is his dad. That's what he looks like after 5 years of Miharu draining his, like, life force. Because also, like, he's not as powerful as his son, so the magic in him isn't, I mean, he can feast off them because they're familiars, but it becomes that situation of like his appetite is so vast and large that it's taking a toll on his dad, to the point he can no longer feed off his friends, because you got to feed off a little at a time, especially with humans, because you're draining their life force. But his friends would get tired and worn out, and so to that point he started having to feed off his dad. So I thought that was an interesting development. It also makes me wonder, because his dad is also immortal too, even if he does only have like a sliver of the power. I'm curious if his dad, given enough time away from Miharu, will he be able to naturally regenerate or not? Like, will he kind of go back to his original state? Like, when we see him again, will he look relatively young, or has there been so much damage done already he's forever stuck like that? I think they're probably going to make it so that he reverts to his young-ish self going forward. We'll have to wait to see. But also a big thing they had going for them was like, how do they deal with this warlock? They find out it's the same thing as the enchanter situation from a couple episodes back of, yeah, she got visited by someone that promised her, power and everything, and being able to, become a full-blown witch. So now the question is, well, what do we do with him? Because Miharu is like, yo, Morihito, if you want me to, I can dispose of him. And Morihito's job is to protect Nico from anyone. So it's like, would that be the best option? But Nico doesn't want anyone to die. It's like, sadly, and it was outside of their hands because they didn't plan on doing anything. They were put in a very impossible situation to begin with, but it became a moot point because whoever's behind all this, like, basically decided, unilaterally themselves that, oh, I'm gonna just steal the magical energy from this warlock, because her life was already extended well beyond what it was supposed to be, and the only thing that kept her going was the magic. But the moment the magic was drained, basically she died, because she would have already died anyway, because she'd been alive that long. So who knows? I doubt the same situation wouldn't have been the case with this guy. But I mean, the point is, like, Nico's like, we have to find another means. And it's like, well, we couldn't neutralize him by draining the magic out of him, because Miharu would be able to do that. But the problem is that would also start attacking his life force, so he'd kind of end up dying regardless. So it's like, well, that's a moot point. So Nico's saying, like, well, I am the witch of 1,000, so how about we do a combo of, while you're draining the magic out of him, I'll heal him so he stays in a relatively good enough health. And then, like, they do that, and the hero is able to slice the magic, and he's just a normal person now. So it all works out. And I love Khan calling out the crazy recovery scene, because Morihito's like, here, take my hand. And then Nimu's over there being like, here's Nico, here's like a red paste thing. And it's just like her eating, and Miharu, like, recovering the way he does too. Is like, it is kind of a wild juxtaposition. But we find out, like, once again, this guy was just, you kind of feel bad for the enchanter too, but it's just like, yeah, she wanted to feel special and feel powerful. This guy is like, he got bullied by people taking advantage of him, constantly calling him an idiot. He wanted he wanted to show them up. And when he, like, was promised, because I can't remember if he jumped or what, or whether he just fell into the river and was going to drown, and this being visited him. It's interesting when we see because when we dealt with the enchanter, we only saw him from behind. Now we kind of see him up front. It looks like almost like this glitchy glamour. It's like, whereas it just looks like, oh, he's a shadowy figure, this time you see him shrouded in this, like, glitchy shadow. But yeah, he makes the promise to the warlock of, like, yeah, I'll give you what you want, so you feel power, you can have that money and start a new life and not feel so helpless and powerless, But it's like, what do I do now? And I'm assuming Mihiro's dad, it's like, you could stay here and that could be a fresh start for you. It's like doing some good. So yeah, taking enemies and turning them into, because their plan was like, yo, let's send the enchanter back to the village so that she could help out the witches. That's what they initially wanted to do, to kind of redeem her, but that was not an option. But now it's like, it's that thing of that first enemy you wanted to try and save, but you can't. But now they were able to make up for the past. Doesn't change the fact that the enchanter is gone, but they can make sure, like, now we've saved someone, and now Morihito realizes that's why Ibuki sent them there with the prophecy, because not only can Miharu help them defeat warlocks, but also defeat them in a way that they're neutralized, and we don't have to worry about killing them. We found another means of neutralizing them, going forward. It's something I hadn't really given much thought of, like, you'd have to, like, potentially kill them, because there's always you might not be able to fully talk no jutsu them. You might be able to do that after you've rendered them, like, powerless. Then you might be able to talk to them, but if they still have their powers, there's still a chance. And that could also be a means that this, just like it stole the enchanter's power and that killed her. As we see with Mihiro's drain, this person behind all this might have a similar ability. Be really interesting if we find out, like, the main person behind this has a little bit of everything from the familiars, whereas, like, there's some physical abilities, but also, like, magical abilities, and, draining the magic that they were able to give before, but also take everything. So probably, like, if they left that magic inside of that guy for failing, the person behind him would have probably killed him in the process of snatching all that magic up. Because it might be a thing of, oh, let me, like, invest this magic in you, but while it's in you, when I take it back, I'm not just taking what I gave you, I'm also taking whatever might have grown while it was there. Like, even if it's by, like, 1.5%, there's still some increment of increasement that I benefit from it. That might not even be from, like, the magic growing inside of you. It could be, like, the magic and your life force. Probably, like, once you get what you want, you're probably going to drain them anyway. So that's the double side of the situation too. You probably are still saving them in the long run going down the route Mihiru. It's not just about you having to kill them. It's also preventing the main antagonist from, well, the big bad of this situation, from killing them as well. But either way, like a big part of the ending of it and Miharu coming to live with Morihito and them is because he to make it so that he's not draining as much energy from people, specifically his dad, he wants to mitigate it by like, okay, I want to go to high school, but what I'll do is I'll sleep throughout most of the day, do as little as activity as I can. That way I'm burning less energy, so I'm less likely to be vastly hungry. But it's like, his father wanted him to have some form of a normal life. I also love that we see the young, beautiful mom, and I love the comment of, oh, probably hasn't had her energy drained even once. But it's a situation of like, no, there's like 3 people you can drain from, energetic people like Keigo, technically 4 if you count Wolf. Who knows if those technically count as 2 separate energies or not. But Morihito and Khan. So it's like, yeah, he can dine on them. And eventually, because I think because the school year's so far in, he probably can't. I think she specifically said like the next school year you'll be able to. Oh, wait, I forgot. I'm so stupid because he clearly said like we found I was like, oh, can he not just, he should be able to just transfer, right? But then I remembered they specifically said he's in his 3rd year of middle school, so he would have to wait, which I was about to think too. I was like, wouldn't he need to be in his 4th year? Because like I think middle school goes from 6th to 9th in Japan. Because I know high school is 10 to 12, but maybe that also does vary from high school to high school. But I was, so that's why I was like, I don't know. But it was like, because he would have to sign. He's not done with middle school yet. It's kind of the point of like, oh right, that's why Nico said what she said. I thought it was like, oh, he just was going to miss out on this next year because it was too late to transfer. It's like, no. It's just he's still in middle school, so he can't go to high school yet. I was like, okay, that's what it was. Yeah, I think that's what I had to remind myself that they brought that up. Like he's like. That he's in middle school. They brought that up in his first introduction. So, but him having this opportunity that he felt like he would have had to give up, and he had this really heartwarming like hug with his dad. So, I thought it was beautiful too. But it's like kind of very much like the Call of the Night, but I'm sure other vampire stuff does as well. But once again, it's my frame of reference vampire wise because it's the most recent thing I was watching / currently is still watching. Is when you like bite into someone you're in that case drinking their blood, in this case draining their energy, you absorb some of their feelings. So he's like, I felt your guilt and worry about me, but also your deep love for me, and also like you still being attracted to mom, like you're a young man, and both of his parents blushing. They're like, shut up, stop talking like that. So they make their way to the train. He gets attacked by a boar because I love stuff like that in animes where it's just like, come on, don't say what you wanted to say, mom and dad. I'll tear up. They're like, no, we're trying to warn you. Watch out for that boar. Immediately gets run over by a boar and has to drain some more energy from Morihito. But yeah, more chaotic fun in the household. So it's gonna be interesting to see what new craziness and energy and dynamics Miharu brings to the household going forward. Excited to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.